So your midterm assignment, which is I call the Media Fail Project, in which you look at new technology that at one point was really hyped and really interested, and everybody thought it was going to be the next uh, best thing since sliced bread, which, by the way, I never understood because sliced bread is not that great. Um, why it failed. And I want you to think of this project as the first in a series of three, the last being your final, in which you're looking at the real world applications or the real world implications of the criteria that you've chosen to judge whether a new app technology media platform is going to succeed. The idea here is to see why these technologies that at one point people were very excited about, were sure going to succeed, were sure going to be big, why they failed. And the idea in looking at why they failed is to figure out what we're missing, what's important, what's not important, um, and enhance our expectations and our analytical skills to not be taken in by the hype, by what's going on, by everybody saying this is going to be great, this is going to be great. Just this year, we've had some spectacular failures. Vine was those of you might remember, these were 6-second videos, which people were saying was a new art form, and it spread like crazy and was really interesting. The year before that, in one of the really major blowouts, Google Glass, which was going to make wearing technology, wearable technology really cool, didn't work out and was closed. And there's example after example after example. Now I've listed on the Moodle site, 15 really high profile examples. If you know of others that I don't know about, I'm not even sure if I included MySpace in that, but throughout this module, I've made allusions to different types of failures that I think that you could look at. The idea is to systematically go through this to determine maybe some of the criteria that you think are important are not important, or maybe they're only important under certain specific conditions, or um, maybe things that you've left out that you haven't taken into account are important. I mentioned this in the introductory video, and I'll go back to it now. Certainly in the terms of Segway, laws were really important. So none of us are looking at autonomous driving vehicles, but if we were, the law, the infrastructure, the liability would be really important. Actually, if you look at Uber and some apps like that, work regulations are really important. So the idea behind this is to systematically go through it, and I want you, as I've said in the written instructions, and there's detailed written instructions that I've posted on Moodle as well, I want you to describe what the app does, give me a good description of what it was, the history of the development of the app, the founders, who founded it, funding, if there was funding, if that was an issue. I want you to look at what the app, what the hype was, what it was expected to do, what they thought the future of the app was. I want you to try to pinpoint when the hype about the app was at its peak. Then I want you to chronicle its collapse, and most of them really have pretty spectacular collapses. The collapses, I want you to identify the reasons for the collapse, and then the most significant part is then reflect what does this say about the criteria, what is important in judging new apps or what's not important in judging new apps. To iterate, what we're trying to do is to develop a set of criteria that we could apply and say this app is going to succeed or this app is going to fail, and have a good sense of that prior to the app succeeding or failing. You could present this using any kind of presentation format you want, and that's true for the final as well. If you want to write a standard paper, it should be about 7 to 9 pages. Embed your apps, your links, your sources as hot links, so I could just click on them to take a look at them. You could put illustrations, is helpful as well. If you have a lot of illustrations, your page length could be a little bit more. When I say 7 to 9 pages, looking at 1,750 to 2,200 words. If you do a visual presentation, i.e. Prezi, PowerPoint with narration, VoiceThread, video, try to keep it to less than 15 minutes. Also, please don't just cut up a paper and give me a lot of text. Use the visual quality of the medium to work with your narration to make good choices. Now, I've linked this to give you plenty of time. I think there's about 5 weeks to do this. You could start thinking about it, give you plenty of time. If you want, there's some content that you might use from the next module as well, the diffusion of innovation, which is really the heart and soul of the course in many ways. There is one piece of content there called Gartner's Media Hype Cycle, which basically charts out in a very persuasive way and a very common way. Maybe some of you are probably familiar with it already. A public reception to new technologies, starting with just insider, this is cool, and then inflated optimism, this is going to be amazing, everybody's going to have it, it's fantastic. Then it has what's called the trough of despair, this is terrible, it sucks, nobody really wants it. And then it finds some actual use level, sustainable use level. You might, if you're not familiar with that, or you want to refamiliarize yourself, that kind of content's actually in the next module, and you can go ahead and look at it. This project is critical because many people, on the one hand, many people are drawn in and spend a lot of money and waste a lot of time and spin a lot of wheels on technology that doesn't work. That's a dead end. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we have a lot of examples, and I repeat these examples because they're so spectacular, but the guy who was running the second largest computer company in the world in the 1970s saw absolutely no reason for anybody to own a PC. That he thought the PC was overhyped. So when we look at failure, you don't want to have, on the one hand, you want to avoid stuff that is overhyped, that's going to fail. We want to understand why that's going to fail, or more importantly, what are the criteria that are going to succeed. On the other hand, you don't want to ignore stuff that's going to be very successful. I think this should be a fun project. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I'm looking forward to seeing the work. Like I said, there is detailed instructions also up on Moodle.